Oh yeah. So you remember the three officers that were exonerated and acquitted, and they were cleared? Well, guess what? They get to resign, and they each get $500,000 a pop. Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, check it out.
Cleared of any wrongdoing. That is the outcome of the internal investigation into the three Tacoma police officers acquitted last month in the death of Manny Ellis. Despite the finding, the three police officers will not return to the Tacoma Police Department. The city of Tacoma planning to pay each officer $500,000 for voluntarily agreeing to resign. And this morning, we're hearing from a local leader on what these decisions could mean for the community and what she thinks needs to happen next. Joining us live, Tacoma City Council member Jamaica Scott is with us. Council member Scott, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So just off the top, what do you think about the outcome of the internal investigation?
I mean, ultimately, what I got from it is that, we had a policy in place in the city for much longer than it should have been in place that really allowed these officers and any officer, especially in 2020, that they could use essentially whatever type of force came to them, as so long as they felt it was reasonable and it really didn't have anything in there about accountability, regardless of the extent if somebody died as a result, was harmed as a result, or if it was just used in general. There's no process by which to, look at whether it was done correctly, done appropriate, used at the appropriate time, and if not, if any of those things were amiss, what are the next steps to making sure that that officer is trained and it doesn't happen again.
What's your take on the resignation agreement, the $500,000 payouts to each officer for voluntarily agreeing to resign?
Yeah, I mean, I feel a couple ways about it. Ultimately, it's a small price to pay in some ways to get the outcome that the community wanted, which was that these officers were separated and not able to go back to the streets of Tacoma. On the other hand, in some ways, because the city has been dealing with so much and the city is in so much need of different resources that this takes from our ability to provide those resources for the city. So on that hand, it's a little frustrating.
Now, we spoke with you earlier this week, and you said that Manny Ellis's death fractured the community, and you said, in your words, it's on our shoulders to heal. So how does the community begin to move forward now that the trial and the internal investigation have wrapped up, and which areas of the community require the most healing, in your opinion?
We had a moment at our council meeting last night to share some remarks, and one of the sentiments I shared there was there's not anybody in this city, whether they recognize it or not, that wasn't touched by this case, because it has a lot of implications for how we move forward as a city and how we're doing as a city. And so I don't think that there's any one part of the community that needs the healing most. I think as a community in general, we need it because we're seeing the outcomes of not having trust between civilians and our police force, of seeing that dichotomy and that chasm that pops in between, people who need help and then being fearful of what happens when they call for help, whether that's that they're harmed or that the response time is too long and they're not, and people aren't there in time. So
you touched on this just a moment ago. Do you believe there needs to be a change in local policing, and what changes would you like to see?
I think there needs to be a change in policing all around. I think, when we look at the roots to policing, it started in slavery, and nobody likes to be policed. It's inherently oppressive. And so, with that in mind, we have to find a way to do it with humanity, with dignity, with respect. And that's on both ends. We need to make sure that our community feels safe. And the thing about when the community feels safe, it actually will make the officers' jobs easier. It will make them feel safer coming into the communities. But at the end of the day, the officers signed up for a job and they have to be willing to be held to a higher standard because they are taking on a job that is critical in the community. And so sometimes it might be fair or feel unfair that we're holding officers to a higher standard, but in some ways it has to be. But at the end of the day, we are looking to make sure that both our civilians and the police have what they need to come to the community, to each of us play our role in keeping the community safe, and nobody is feeling like when they are calling for help that they're either not heard or they're heard and still being ignored.
And so what would you say your role is in that, using your position as a council member to make everyone, citizens and police alike, feel heard and protected?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a big part of it is going to be, and I've been, I'm trying to kind of work out the details because it is a big undertaking, but looking at things in the spirit of restorative justice, we have criminal proceedings, we have civil proceedings, but what we really need in this moment is a space where the community can come together, regardless of what you feel about this issue, where officers and other first responders can come together. We can share our actual lived experiences. We can see the humanity in each other. Once you start to see that humanity in each other, it's much harder to dismiss people. It's much harder to put each other in buckets and stereotypes. And you start to see people for the individualism and the diversity and all of the different strengths that they can bring to a community, regardless of what your role in that community is.
Tacoma City Council member Jamika Scott, thank you so much.
Jamika Scott. Here you go.
They avoid murder charges. They have to resign because, they committed murder. And then they get paid $500,000 for resigning. Put up the picture full mass. 3 Tacoma, Washington police officers, Christopher Burbank, Matthew Collins, and Timothy Rankin, who were found not guilty in the case of Manuel Ellis, who died in police custody in 2020, will each now receive a bonus for killing a black man. $500,000 because they resigned. I kid you not. Chief Avery L. Moore announced on Tuesday that the officers voluntarily resigned and left in, quote, good standing, despite one of them violating department's courtesy policy in 2020. All 3 were otherwise cleared of departmental violations, the policies at that time, under those policies then. Now, once again, they voluntarily resigned, according to the record. Elizabeth Pauley, the city manager, said in the statement, quote, these agreements support a responsible, constructive path forward for our community and Tacoma Police Department. I acknowledge that healing throughout Tacoma will require time, open dialogue, and shared respect. What, ma'am? Matthew Erickson, a lawyer for Mr. Ellis, the Mr. Ellis's family, criticized the agreements as perverse. He highlighted that the former officers had already received about $1.5 million in total during their nearly 4 years on leave. Everyone in the community should be upset at this. So cops literally get paid more money when they kill people. Well, black people in particular. Meanwhile, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Washington launched the investigation into the fatal arrest of Ellis a month after the 3 officers were acquitted on charges of second-degree murder and manslaughter in his death. The federal review aims to reassess evidence in the state's failed prosecution to ensure no pertinent facts were overlooked and to determine whether the officers would face civil rights charges in the 33-year-old black man's police custody death March 3rd, 2020. If that review reveals violations of federal criminal statutes, the Justice Department will take appropriate action, said Emily Langley, spokesperson for acting U.S. Attorney for Western Washington, Tessa Gorman. No new evidence is expected to be introduced during the independent probe. Previously, the Pierce County Sheriff's Office faced criticism for botching the investigation after failing to reveal that one of his own deputies was involved in restraining Ellis, leading to federal scrutiny, as well as the creation of a new independent office dedicated to investigating police misconduct in the district. The trial lasted more than 2 months and ended December 21st with acquittals of Matt Collins, Christopher Burbank, and Timothy Rankin, 2 of whom are white, after defense attorneys successfully argued that Ellis died from methamphetamines he took before the fatal encounter, and because he suffers from an enlarged heart. Rankin is Asian, according to the New York Times. While the Pierce County medical examiner concluded that Ellis died as a result of homicide from oxygen deprivation. The jury rejected the arguments by prosecutors who accused the officers of causing Ellis's death by beating, shocking, and choking the man while he was already hog-tied and handcuffed and on the ground. On the night of his death, Ellis was unarmed and walking home with donuts from a 7-Eleven store. He had not committed any crime. He was confronted by 3 white deputies who held him down, brutalized him as he pleaded, "I can't breathe." So let me tell you something. The federal government is getting involved because they know the fix was in. Let me be 100. All of this, we're trying to check. No, they already know what happened. They clearly know what happened. They know that these guys got away with murder. And when that happened, they said, okay, we now have to get involved. But as they are now investigating the cops for murder, the cops get an additional $500,000 on top of the $1.5 million they already got. They couldn't even wait until the investigation for murder was finished in order to give them the money. All right, Ravana, I've never seen anything like this before. This is a first for me. What say you?
It is absolutely unusual for a U.S. Attorney's Office to step in and begin investigating this type of ruling, especially so quickly after it has taken place. They're doing so, and you're exactly right, because they know that there was, at the very least, gross incompetence on the prosecution's part, if not outright corruption, and that is why they will be, investigating that. I also say, I have a, some people might hear the term acquittal, and that immediately to them, makes them think innocent. But, I have a really good friend who is a defense attorney, and the tagline for their office is, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. I mean, everybody knows.
That's true. That's actually legally true.
Right. Just because, you are acquitted, just because the jury might find you innocent, doesn't mean that you didn't actually commit it. And in this case, it is abundantly clear that these officers murdered this innocent man. They reveled in the torture that they put him through, and they killed him. And, that was the conclusion of the autopsy. So the fact that this trial could turn out any other.
And here's another problem as well, too. A lot of times when the juries are selected as well, a lot of people are they're either not woke about, policing and, about people have rights, or you get people that are pro-cop, that they go around saying, oh, we back the blue, that blue lives matter. I think it was both in the say of the trial. People, I bet the jury went around like, oh, that guy, Manuel, he died from drugs. The cops could do no wrong. Oh, the cops are always right. They know about the law. It's just like how people talk about, oh, cops get away because they got qualified immunity. I'm going to talk about how we need to abolish qualified immunity.
Way is just evidence of the corruption and the incompetence that led it there.
Yeah, and they likely stack the jury pool as well, which is a tactic that is old school, but still available with some of the power that these local jurisdictions have.
Yep, like I said, it's another case. It's another video and another case of Happy Fuck the Cops Day, fuck the police, and fuck the blue. With that said, I'm Manuel. Peace out.